Actually, the weather was lovely for the boat race yesterday in London. Cambridge's men and women took home the trophies. They were the winners in both the races. But rowers from the University of Oxford who took part have expressed concern about those E. coli levels in the River Thames after some of the team became ill and competitors were urged not to go into the water.
Yeah, Oxford's Lenny Jenkins spoke after they lost the race about how this sewage in the water could have affected their performance.
I will also say, and this is in no way to take away from Cambridge, but we've had a few guys go down pretty badly with the E. coli strain. So, I mean, this morning I was throwing up and I really wasn't sure that there was going to be a chance for me to be in the boat, but I ultimately kept that quiet and that's on my shoulders. I'm not sure if it was the right choice because I really didn't feel like I had much to give in that, but it would have been taking one of those top guys out of ISIS and ruining their chances. So I felt like we needed to give them a fair fight. But yeah, it would have been ideal not to have so much poo in the water. But that's not to take away from Cambridge. They were a talented crew. I don't know if we would have had a chance to get them, even if we'd all been on form.
Well, really frustrating for them. And we're joined now by Erin Kennedy, Coxswain with the GB rowing team. Good morning. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. You will feel huge sympathy for those rowers, I'm sure, who were not feeling at their physical best for a race with such intensity and obviously, the biggest race of the year for them.
Yeah, it's a real shame that they weren't feeling at their best, and it's really tough. Racing and high performance sport is really brutal. It's all about, can you perform on the day? You can do as well as you want in training, but it's needing to perform on the day, and that's what makes it count. And it's one of the big concerns that British rowing and all of us at the GB rowing team have about the state of our rivers at the moment. There is a recent survey been done, and the state of the rivers is so poor. It's maybe it wasn't that surprising perhaps for some of us that the E. coli was found in the part of the river that they were rowing on.
I suppose we can't say for absolute certain that that's what's caused the sickness, but it's certainly a very plausible explanation. And I just wonder, how common is it for people to get unwell when they've been exposed to this water? Is it something you've come across before?
Yeah, as you say, it's very difficult to know if it was definitely E. coli, but unfortunately it is something that happens kind of more often than it should, and definitely increasingly so as well. We have to be really hot on our hand hygiene when we're coming off the water. We're making sure that, obviously, as athletes, we're coming off wanting to refuel really quickly, but it's making sure that essentially we're clean so that basically any contaminant from the water isn't kind of being passed on to our food. Making sure things like our water bottles, we normally put them down in the bottom of the boat, but more recently we're making sure that we've got caps on top of our water bottles, making sure that they're not getting contaminated with the water, and it's a real problem.
Erin, how disappointing, I suppose, to put it mildly, is it that you're having to make those changes to what you do? Some of the advice yesterday, of course, we said, don't be in the water. Don't have your mouth open. I mean, this is sport. People are heaving, they're trying to breathe, they're in a race, and the advice is don't have your mouth open on a river. How frustrating is it? Because you row that stretch of water, don't you?
Yeah. I've rowed here a lot, and like you say, not having your mouth open while you're training. I mean, you saw potentially some of the scenes from the boat race. You can't do anything but sort of gasp for air, and it's just relatively kind of unreasonable expectations. And I think what's really tough is there's a kind of a lot trying to be done with boat clubs doing kind of water testing, but ultimately there's a limited amount that what we can do. There was kind of recently the Environment Agency said that it's basically doubled the amount of sewage that is being pumped into the river. So there was 3.6 million hours worth of spillage going into the rivers all across England last year, which is just unacceptable. And it's really difficult because it's not just rowers who are struggling, it's all river users. And we're coming up to the summer. We want to make the most of the amazing rivers around the UK, but everyone's now at risk of essentially really dirty water.
And there is a lot more awareness around river pollution, coastal water pollution as well these days. It's not just Thames Water. Other water companies have received a lot of criticism, but we should say what Thames Water say about all of this. They say taking action to improve the health of rivers is a key focus. They talk about providing real-time data available to customers around water quality. They talk about spending millions of pounds, hundreds of millions of pounds upgrading sewage treatment works. And also, we've heard a lot that they're, in a sense, victims of the weather, the high volumes of rain that have been coming down this year, and that's all associated long-term with climate change as well. Do you have any sympathy at all for the position water companies are in?
I do have a lot of sympathy, and I can vouch there has been some terrible weather. You know, as rowers, you might have heard them talking about it in the boat race yesterday, but the crew from Oxford who were training around Wallingford, they've been flooded for the majority of their winter season. But ultimately, kind of, it is their job, and I think it is their job to kind of protect the rivers and protect the water, and essentially provide something that is safe and clean for everyone to be around. And I think, you know, there's definitely more that can be done, and hopefully, you know, as I said, from 22 to 23, that water pollution doubled. Hopefully we can see it half next year.
And of course, the big build-up to the Olympics and Paralympics in Paris. We know that the authorities there have been doing a lot of work to try and improve the water quality in the Seine. You know, it's a global focus, isn't it? But it seems particularly acute right now. We're talking about it, and you see the impact day to day. Would you have been happy to row yesterday, incidentally, or to be in the boat?
I think I think I would have, but again, as a coxswain, I definitely wouldn't want to get thrown in. And this is the thing, like, whilst you are rowing, you are on top of the water, of course, but you're getting splashed all the time. You know, the blades are clipping the water, you're getting water all over you, and it is just one of those risks that you're sort of willing to take. But yeah, I would have been definitely concerned if they wanted to throw me in.
Can I just ask, can you ever see a time when they would have to move the boat race to somewhere like Eton Dorney?
Well, that's a very big question. I think there'll be a lot of people who are very unhappy about this. This is kind of one of the oldest fixtures that have been going on every year. I think I would probably get shot down if I was kind of saying that it should move. And at the moment, I don't think so. I actually think that instead of us just moving the problem, I think we should be putting more pressure on those water companies to do better. I think it's a really important thing that there's lots of people, like we're right at the Putney embankment here. There are tons of boathouses who make use of this river. It's one of the busiest stretches of river. You've got schools training out of here. We've got clubs. We've got masters rowers. We've got basically all the way from grassroots through to elite sport. And it's something that we all want to do. We all want to be using it. And we can't move all of these people off. The boat race happens once a year, but these guys train here every day. So actually, the boat race is amazing for bringing attention to it. But actually, I think we need to think about the river users who are just using it on a daily basis.
Right, there is an entire river community that lives and depends on it. Thank you very much, Erin. Really appreciate it. Erin Kennedy, a GB rower.